What is up, Jabronis? JJ back here with none other than Spread Stare. Spread, we don't do a lot of videos together. It's actually nice to see your face for a change.
Yeah, I think we'll be hanging out a lot over this next month. The cool thing about the Olympic is that it's hard court, so it'll translate directly into what we'll be watching this next month as tennis takes the stage before the NFL starts.
Yeah, no, it should be a nice few months here leading up to the Open. I mean, as I look at myself here through the camera, I look like a refrigerator with this shirt on. I mean, I know, like sometimes you like put weight on, and like maybe some shirts don't do you justice. I mean, I look like I've been spending a lot of time at buffets, and the thing is, like, it hasn't been the case. So this shirt might have to go out from my from my wardrobe for videos. But anyway, sorry to go off topic, but you're going to notice that a lot, Spread. We're going to do that ebbs and flows, if you will. So you'll adjust as everyone else does. So we'll start on the men's side with some of these matches. And what are some thoughts on how this tournament's played out so far? Another tournament where, again, a lot of favorites coming through. There's, of course, been the occasional upset here and there, and big upsets, of course, players like Broady and Sabalenka. But for the most part, favorites are cruising. And on the men's side, it's also a watered-down field overall. I mean, you look at from top to bottom, really a lot of bigger names missing from this pool. What has your thoughts been on the men's side and women's side, and anything that's kind of stuck out so far?
Yeah, I mean, this men's field is more top heavy than the usual men's field, and that's saying something because the men have traditionally been top heavy, over the last 15 years with the dominance of the big three here. So, we have top players in great form, Djokovic, Zverev, you could throw Rublev in there, Tsitipsas, and who's my last guy? Daniel Medvedev, right? They're like top tier elite Grand Slam contenders. And then you just have other guys in this field, like Sumit Nagal, Istomin, Sagita, just guys that really don't have a chance. So I think it's been tough to wager on the first couple rounds, but I think it's going to set up for a very dramatic quarterfinals on, because we'll have I accept, the guys that we talked about to make it, and then we're going to have three guys that really play in top form and got a great chance to kind of introduce themselves to people on this world stage. So it's going to be fantastic. But unfortunately, we have a lot of big lines as we're looking at handicapping this round today.
Yeah, definitely a lot of thicker lines today. And I tell you what, a lot of favorites won yesterday, and I've been saying it's kind of been like the case with especially bigger tournaments in tennis. I'd say going back almost 6 to 8 months. Not to say you always expect dogs to win, but I mean, there's been a lot of favorites coming through, especially your bigger favorites. We could just get this started right away. So Tiafoe and Tsitsipasas. Now, Stefanos has a bit of an issue here, right? Because he had just recently lost to Tiafoe on clay. How long ago was that, Spread? That recent? Was it grass? No,
that was on grass. That was at Wimbledon.
That's right. That was even close for whatever reason. I thought that was back to clay. Yeah, and I mean, it was not even close. Now, granted, maybe you caught a different version of Tsitsipas there, and I think people forget like Tsitsipas had this big clay run this season, but he's always been, hard court's been his preferred surface, and here he comes back to it. The issue is Tiafoe's preferred surface is also hard court, and he looked good in his first round as well. This line feels a little too thick, so I'd argue for some value grabbing a set with Tiafoe. Some value. I would like to get steamed a little more where that might be a little bigger. I assume the current line, as I look at it here, with 4.5 games. Let me see. Yeah, so 4.5 games is current. That's right down the middle for even, at -110 both ends. For me, I think Tiafoe's at least live to steal a set. As far as the games go, to me, it depends on the version you expect to get a Tsitsipas. He loves hard court. He's been a little Jekyll and Hyde recently, though, since his clay run. So you hope that like complacency didn't start to hit him, but look, he's trained really well, as we both know. But what do you think of this match?
Yeah, I think the value here is on Tiafoe. Obviously he's coming off the win in Wimbledon, and people are going to discount that, right? And it makes sense because Tsitsipas was off, one of the toughest matches, one of the toughest losses in his career in the French. Makes sense that it would be really hard for him to get up, on 3 weeks. And I don't know if I can't remember, but I don't even think he played any warm-up events. So now we're switching to the slow hard courts, which, like you said, actually, I don't think that the surface is an advantage for either player. I think that they're both quite comfortable on these slower hard courts. So you got it's dog or pass to me. How do you want to approach it? I think he covers the 4.5. I think the plus 335 is probably worth a sprinkle. And then if you want to play it safe, the easiest way to do that is to go ahead and take the over. And that's the idea that I don't think Tiafoe is just going to roll over. It's 21.5. So it definitely, correlates with you saying that Tiafoe grabs the set, but you might be able to cash on a 7-5, 6-4 as well. So I think the over is the best look in this match. Values on Tiafoe. I won't even put Tsitipsas in a parlay. I think this price is wrong. I think the true price should be like plus 215 maybe for Tiafoe.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense too. And obviously, look, if you get the best version of both players, Tsitsipas likely wins this one by a wide margin. The question, of course, is if you get that version of Stefanos. And I agree with you. I'm not sure that I'm convinced that we will get that in this match. But either way, and you mentioned the 335. DK is 360 for Tiafoe. So if you look into
okay.
there. So Schwartzmen and Machac here. Schwartzmen minus 425. Now Machac's a guy, or Machac, is a guy I haven't had much, if any at all, watching experience with him. So I can't really even speak to him, and I won't try to. Look, we do know Schwartzman has one of the lower first serves out of all the top, call it 30, 40 tennis players. But a guy that's super tough to get the ball past. Certainly doesn't prefer hard courts. But overall, the line might seem like it's not big enough. But again, it's hard for me to really weigh that with not having much viewership on Machac. Do you have any thoughts here on this match?
No, I'm just like you. I haven't done any tape study on Machac. And I don't really just run numbers like some of the guys I know do. So if I haven't tape studied them, so I crossed this one off right off the bat. Now I had probably 3 or 4 matches like that in the first round. Fortunately, 3 of the 4 got eliminated, and Machac's the only one left. So everyone else I've seen and I'm ready, but this one I had to cross off the list because I don't feel qualified to jump in on this one.
No, makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I'm in that exact same boat. So next matchup, Aslan Karatsev versus Jeremy Chardy. So Karatsev minus 230 here versus Chardy. And these two just met in Wimbledon recently, I believe, with a 3-0 spanking against Chardy. I got that right? Let me just confirm here. Yeah, so Wimbledon, Karatsev absolutely, tore the doors off Chardy, at least for our sets go. How these points played out. I'd argue that Chardy got a bit unlucky for this 3-0 score. I mean, you're looking at a game where Chardy won 3-0. What am I talking about?
Yeah, Chardy, but 2 tiebreakers and then a 6-3 in the third.
Yeah, so interesting enough, that line was bigger there, and now it's a little tapered down. It could have to do with that little pre-bias, if you will, or recency bias, if you will, with that line. Look, Karatsev has no business being an underdog here regardless. I know that he didn't play well in Wimbledon. But the interesting thing for me is Chardy comes with the big serve, right? He's got a bigger serve than Karatsev. But Karatsev's a really good returner. And I'm interested to see how he plays here in this match in particular. I'd expect a much better performance from him here. However, I know that I'm trying to look at the total games. I assume it's 22.5?
Yeah, I got 22.5 on Bookmaker.
Yeah, so to me, it's an interesting line, right? Because you look at 3 entire sets in Wimbledon, right? There was a total of 12 break points shown between both players through 3 entire sets. Mm-hmm. You'd expect there not to be a whole lot of shown in this one. My issue, of course, is with 22.5 is you really need a tiebreak for this thing to go 2 sets and you to win it. So for me, it's like if you like it, I guess you kind of have to like the potential for this to go 3 sets, and it very well could. If this goes to tiebreak, to me, it's a coin flip for either player. I'd even argue that needle moves a little in favor of Chardy with the bigger serve. Mm-hmm. However, it's very tough for me to like anything about this match. Again, this would normally be a spot I'd want to back Karatsev in. However, you can't really look past the fact, at least from a mental perspective, him getting 3-0'd in the Wimbledon match. What are your thoughts on how that happens in tennis from time to time? And how much does it really impact the way you handicap the following match spread?
Yeah, and this I think it's all, obviously situational. In this case, I don't know if it's as indicative as I would like. Now, originally, right, I look at it and I'm thinking, this might be a nice over. They went to 2 tiebreaks in their most recent match. If I just get 1 tiebreak here, I'm most likely hitting that over at 22.5. However, I mean, talk about a drastic surface change, right? I mean, time zone, surface, humidity, so many things are different here as we're switching. So I actually stayed away from that one. I would guess there's a little bit of value here. The Chardy number I see is plus 186. A little bit of value on him to do it again. But like you said, the big serve is now going to be mitigated by the slower services. I think this service lends itself to returning a lot more than, say, Wimbledon, where I think the return of Karatsev will be able to jump in, and that's why I stayed away and think that this line is pretty close to being right. If you were to force me to choose, every match, and we're doing some sort of contest where I'd pick every match against the numbers they have right now, slight value on Chardy here, but I don't think enough, because I think some people will overreact to the Wimbledon result and not realize how much different this match is going to look just due to the surface and even the conditions with how much hotter and more humid it is down in Tokyo right now.
Yeah, and worth noting, in that previous match, Karatsev was about $140. Now he's nearly double that. I mean, he's basically minus 230. So it's not like you can get like inherent line value on Karatsev either. So it is very difficult to. You talking value? It's hard to imagine there's not value on trying to even like steal a set, because again, if this goes to a tiebreak, I'd have it at best a coin flip in favor of either player. So if you do spread, as far as spreads go, plus 1.5, yeah, you gotta lay $155, which I'm not a fan of. At least at DK you do. But overall, to me, there's a lot of arrows going in both directions for this game, for this match in particular. So I'm likely going to completely avoid this one. There's a few matches coming up though that I do like on the men's side.
Let me jump back and just address what you're saying with value real quick. And here's an issue that we're going to have on these big tournaments and why it really pays to be selective. On these big tournaments, there will be like, quote unquote value on almost every single dog, right? Because we get the public money coming in, and what do they love to do? They love to grab a couple favorites that they know are the better players, and they parlay them, and that runs the price up, right? Unfortunately, if you try to bet every single one of these where they have value, I mean, you better just have the most stoic mental perspective, because your variance is going to be absolutely ridiculous, right? If we would have done the show yesterday, we would have said, hey, there's value on a bunch of these dogs, right? And you would have got decimated, and you might have made the right bets. So I just wanted to touch on that. I think a lot of times we're going to say that there's value on the dog, but we're not necessarily going to bet it, just because we're going to try and eliminate just some of that wild variance. And really try and find, our favorite ones, and not just, hey, this line is 5 to 10 cents off.
No, it makes a ton of sense. It makes a ton of sense. And I think that you find that often in tennis too. It's a sport that includes a tremendous amount of variance in how, from set to set, from service game to service game works. I mean, you see all that often as far as, so how you define what value truly is, of course, might not mean anything as far as how the results go in certain samples. But it is a good point, though. You could have found a lot of value in dogs, and there might have been objective value in dogs yesterday, but you would have gotten the floor wiped out from under you yesterday in particular.
Yeah, which is why, even though we're going to say there's value on a lot of these dogs, we're going to be selective on the actual plays we give out.
Yeah, for sure. So Hurkacz and Broady here. What's the line I see? Because I had a different line.
I got a minus 526, minus 4.5, 21.
Yeah, so and this line makes a lot of sense. So Brody's another guy that I don't have a ton. I believe I've actually watched like one or two of his matches, and I think they were in Wimbledon recently. Outside of that, though, I haven't watched a whole lot of him play, at least over the call it last month or two. Hurkacz, we know, has the big serve, and of course follows it up with the big forehand. Well, does drop occasional drop shots in as well, and had a really good run in Wimbledon as well, where that ended shortly against Berrettini. Hasn't played really any tennis since, any relevant tennis at least, and now comes back to hard court, which of course is his favorite surface. To me, this is almost a no-brainer. It's hard to imagine Hurkacz gets broken in this match at all. Now, granted, he could lose a tiebreak because he's not exactly the best returner either. But so like 2-0 to me would be live. I know that 2-0 for this line is likely like in that 200, 250 area, probably even bigger. Actually, I'm seeing 165. To me, it's hard to imagine him dropping a set here against a player like Broady. But what are your thoughts there on a match like this? And like I look at the total here, 20.5, which to me has some value in the over, just because Hurkacz isn't a guy who tends to put a lot of pressure on opponents' serve, especially on hard courts. I know this court's playing slower, but he often has to get a little help from his opposing player in the terms of a lot of second serves. What do you think on this match and the total sitting at 20.5 games?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a look to the over here. I do think that Broady will be able to keep up here. But again, I agree with you. The -1.5 set handicap, I see at -164. I think that's about the same price that you have. That actually might be worth a look too. I mean, Hubie's playing fantastic here. When we look at even his loss to Berrettini, I felt that was just Berrettini playing great. I didn't downgrade Hurkacz at all on that match at all. I just thought he ran into a guy playing top 5 level tennis here. So if we get that same level here, which he seemed to show, I think that he can blow Broady away. So, you can make a slight argument for the over. I would think I might actually rather lay the juice there and take the -1.5 sets.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that even though it's $1.65, it probably realistically should be bigger. And I know it's a math line based on the money line here, but like I said, I mean, you would need such a mental checkout from Hurkacz to drop a service game here. And again, if this goes to tiebreak, for me, big advantage Hurkacz. So overall, I think even at 165, I think that there's value up on that, because again, to me, that should be easily another 30-40 cents bigger. But again, another big favorite, so it's kind of tough to wiggle ourselves around, finding true value in some of these lines. This one coming up in particular, though, is going to be my favorite bet of this entire video. So James Duckworth and Karen Khachanov go head-to-head here. And I'm, at least from Pure Guys will know, I'm a Duckworth guy. I've backed him in quite a bit of matches over the last month and a half, whether it's totals, whether it's him plus games, whether it's him money line. The guy just has an underrated serve, and he comes back on hard court here. He didn't look great by any means in his first match, but he's a guy that can certainly keep up serve-wise with nearly any server on the American side. And he's also an above-average returner. The problem with him is his fitness levels and his inability to choose proper shots at the proper times. If you watch him play enough, you'll see he'll go for like drop shots from weird locations, and he'll go for backhands when he could easily set up a forehand. So again, his decision-making isn't always the best in match, but his talent-wise is severely underrated. You watch him some of his shot making in the middle of matches, and it truly can be elite. I think he can definitely give Khachanov here some trouble. And I do really like this match to go over 20.5 games. Again, I know it's another big inflated line, but for me, you get a tiebreak here, which to me is very possible between two big servers. And or of course, if Duckworth is to steal a set, which is unlikely. But again, he's a guy that defends break points really well. He also tends to win break points really well. He's not somebody who kind of like cracks under pressure in that regard. Again, he was kind of battle tested a lot in his first match, where he probably shouldn't have been. But I don't exactly look at that as too much of a bad thing. Klein is definitely not a very good player by any means. At least when you talk about ATP level tour guys. And he did give Duckworth a bit of a hard time. But again, I think you get a better performance from Duckworth here, and just enough to push this over 20.5 games. So I like that as my best bet from the video.
All right, yeah, I agree with you there. One thing I'd just like to throw in there about Duckworth, when you talk about the bad shot making, I think that correlates to the conditioning. I think a lot of times he just kind of asks out of these rallies because he's getting tired. So he'll either go for the big shot when it's unnecessary, or he doesn't have the court position. To me, a lot of times when I see a drop shot that's not like completely obvious that this is the right move, to me that's saying I want to, I want out of this rally. I'm getting kind of tired, and I don't feel like I have the advantage going, forehand to forehand or backhand to backhand or whatever I see. So I do think that's correlated, and I also do agree with your idea that the over is the look here. Khachanov can be very passive on return games, especially after he's already got the break. I mean, he'll just give them away, which is great when you're taking an over. Because not only, the games just pile up, a lot of times if he has a little hiccup, right, instead of getting up 2 breaks and just cruising to the end of the set, now he has a hiccup on his service game, you're back on serve, and you're going to get that tie break for sure. So I do like the way that you've gone in there, and I'll be joining you on that over.
Awesome. So next match, Humbert versus Kecmanovic. Now, I've also heard his name pronounced differently. I guess that could depend.
Yeah, I've heard Kecmanovic.
I guess that could depend. You know what? It's interesting too. Like a player like Muhova, in certain countries, they still pronounce it Muchova, but in certain countries they silent the letters there and they call it just Muhova.
Yeah, and even if you watch, like, because I have, like, the Tennis Channel Plus or Tennis Channel Everywhere or whatever it's called, and you'll get different pronunciations depending on who your announcers are. Like Bartoli will pronounce different than Whitaker and things like that. So
yeah,
I don't worry about our pronunciations too much.
Yeah, and I wonder if I guess it has to be country related, right? Like I guess certain countries pronounce certain letters differently, and I guess that all correlates. But either way, so Kecmanovic and Humbert. So Humbert's always a kid that I've always looked at as like a little baby Kyrgios, and not so much from like the out of court extravagant issues, but like if you watch him play, like he goes for trick shots at weird times. He does a lot of like silly in rally things. But the kid is super talented and comes back to his best surface, which is hard court, has a very big serve for his size. I mean, he's very wiry, like a thin kid, but serves really big. This is an interesting match overall for a few different reasons. I'm just trying to pull up the line, what exactly I see here. Yeah, so he's $175, which might appear cheap, but I tell you what, Kecmanovic is the type of player that can frustrate Humbert in quite a few different ways. I mean, Humbert is definitely going to try to overpower him in definite rallies. But again, decision-making from this young kid in rallies is very questioning at times. And if he kind of checks himself out mentally, woof, I mean, this match will end as soon as he gets broken the first time. How do you approach a kid like him in matches like this that he has all the motivation in the world to win? But of course, they line him away at 175 for obvious reasons, right? From a talent perspective, he's by far more talented than his opponent here. But again, how do you really know you're going to get the best version of him?
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy. When you make the Kyrgios comparison, the other thing is I want to watch and not be involved financially in these matches. And I feel the same way about Kyrgios. I will get involved with him as a dog against the big name players, right? Because that's the one time I can kind of count on his effort. But as a favorite, I don't like backing these guys because, like you said, they do get kind of wacky with their shot selection. And I also don't think that they maybe take the losses as hard as some of the other players. In which case, when things are going bad, right, I think they have no problem saying like, well, hey, I got VIP at the club a little later, and I still have a lot of money regardless of whether or not I win this match. Where you get a guy like PCB or RBA that is gonna, he could be down 6-0, 5-0, low 40, and it's gonna give you every single ounce of effort there on the thing. So I'm not getting involved in this match at all. But if you like Humbert, I mean the tape study is going to tell you that Humbert is the way to go here. Now, if you want to look at their most recent matches, they played in Majorca, and that was the grass. Humbert was able to come over, and then they played twice on hard courts last year. But those are all the way back to February. So, I mean, I can't even really take a lot from any of these earlier head-to-head results, even with them playing so recently in June, just because it was the grass, and now we're on this slow surface. So, to me, this one was a pretty easy one to stay away from.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I rarely bet his matches. And if I do, it's always because he's a small dog or he's playing another big server and an over kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very tough to want your money invested in Humbert matches when he's favored. So next matchup, Ivashka versus Kukushkin. And so you might see a fat line here. I'd argue it's actually not even close to big enough. To me, I really like under. To me, I really like the under here, 20.5. Again, I don't like it as much as the over for Duckworth, but I really like the under here for a few different reasons. You get a player in Ivashka who's just really been on the rise. I mean, you talk about the clay run, and then he comes over to grass and looks pretty good there as well. And he goes up against Kukushkin, who, sure, he beat Coria, who's, first of all, not an excellent hardcore player either. And he hasn't exactly been in the best form himself. He's been playing a lot of clay. Look, you look back at Kukushkin's matches, even who he's beaten, he hasn't beaten anybody. He hasn't even taken sets from people that are really relevant, at least at the ATP tour level. To me, you're getting a very informed player who's been on the rise versus an older player who's doing the exact opposite. And to me, they can't make this line big enough, in my opinion. I just don't see how Kukushkin breaks Ivashka, again, unless you get like one of those service games where it's a few double faults, all second serves, weird misses. And Ivashka should be live on every single Kukushkin service game, in my opinion. So overall, and look, he beat Monfils, who I watched that match. I thought Monfils looked pretty good coming back. And look, Monfils is the type of player that while he might be losing matches, because again, he hasn't been the healthiest of players due to injuries and other concerns. And the dude also got married recently.
Yeah.
But
congratulations.
yes, but overall, I don't look at the fact that Monfils stole a set from him by any means as a bad. I think the match was overall coin flip, and I thought it was just good tennis from both players, and I think that translates here as well. Under 20.5 for me is a very live look in this match.
I completely agree. Kukushkin, I mean, you got to be kidding me here. I mean, this is amazing that he was able to do this. Do we understand? He went the whole clay swing without winning a match. He didn't win a match on clay for like 2 months. He won one match in Miami against Draper. I don't know Draper. I can't rate that win here. I don't see how this surface is going to lend itself to anything good for Kukushkin. And other than like a complete meltdown by Ivashka, I don't see how he gets there. And Ivashka's not a guy that I really have to worry about the motivation as much. It seems to me like I get a good match from him, most of the times out there. So I'm completely with you here. This seems like a mismatch, and I mean, I see minus 476. So I mean, maybe the price is right, but regardless, I'm with you here. The under seems to be the way to go. Why would I lay 476 or minus 5 when I can get this under 20.5? So I think that's the best way to go with this match.
No, awesome. And again, I couldn't agree more in that respect. So next matchup, Giron versus my boy Nishikori. I've gone on record saying quite a bit. I love Nishikori. It's very painful to me to watch him these days because he's obviously no longer his top 5 player that he once was. But man, I mean, he's a fun kid to watch when he's playing really well. He does draw Giron here, who had that one good tournament in Hal, I believe, a few weeks back. But outside of that, he's kind of gone right back to his roots. And Nishikori upsets Rublev yesterday. And I'll be honest, Rublev didn't look his best in that match. But look, you take what you can get if you're a player like Nishikori. To me, look, Nishikori keeps up that same level of play. Giron's got no business stealing a set from him here. So overall, yeah, I mean, I would have my stronger lean in this match overall to the favorite here, laying the 7.5, which will put you at about $1.25. And that has more to do with outside of how Giron has not just been the type of player or hasn't been that type of player before or after that tournament. So overall, yeah. And then you're going back to hard court where Giron's got a decent serve. It's definitely by no means above average. You got 2 actually servers here that are by no means above average servers, but they still win a lot of their first serve points. Nishikori should put a ton more pressure on him, though. I lay the 7.5 Nishikori.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Talk about guys that don't necessarily dial up the first serves and get the ace numbers that you would want for DraftKings. What they do very well is service placement, which allows them to get the easy winner or essentially forced error off the first shot. A lot of them also like to drive it to their forehand coming off. So, you'll see them going out wide many times. So you don't get the huge stats with all the aces, but you're getting this huge advantage right off the bat with the serve, which is what's allowing them to hold. And Nishikori here, I talked about this, when we did a preview pod. I said, throw the tape study out. This has the potential to be like a Connors 89 U.S. Open run, right? The older guy at home, one last shot at glory, right? He's got nothing to lose. He's loved by the Japanese people. So he's almost, pretty much free rolling here. With his ability. He's got the huge upset, right? Now he comes in as the big favorite. I agree with you. I like him to keep it rolling here. So I think minus 1.5 sets might be the best. That way you can get away with the tiebreak win rather than trying to play the total of 22.
Awesome. So now we go to Carreno-Busta versus Dominique Koepfer. So look, I've said this about Carreno-Busta for the longest time. This guy just very rarely loses to players he's not supposed to lose to. He is a guy that will consistently lose to players ranked above him, but very often will consistently beat players ranked very well below him. Koepfer's a good player, but again, this is a typical match that Carreno-Busta has no business losing. If you look back, spread, and I'm going back pretty deep at this point, his matches that he's lost, I mean, you're talking Casper Ruud, Nadal, Delbonis in Madrid during his like epic clay run, a retirement against Nishikori, Tsitsipas in the French, Medvedev on grass, and then Query on grass. This dude does not lose to players like in very poor manners. Now Koepfer has have these guys played head to head? Let me see.
They played once. It was in 2019.
Yeah, to me, you could
Shanghai, if I remember right, is a super fast hard court. So
you could actually probably throw that out anyway because he's too
definitely throw it out. But yeah, I don't know how much that surface even correlates.
For me though,
to be fair though, I would think that the slower surface actually helps. I think that the Shanghai surface would be better for Koepfer.
Yeah, I think that overall, Busta is just not a player that often drops sets to players he's not supposed to, and of course lose matches to players he's not supposed to. So while I hate to go back to back chalk favorites, but yeah, I mean Busta minus 1.5 sets for me makes a ton of sense. Again, if he drops a set here, he drops a set, but he just doesn't lose matches like this very often. So for me, even at $140, or even drop sets like this very often. So even at $140, yeah, I like Busta here in straights.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I hate to not do, Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp wouldn't be very happy with us, agreeing on all these things, right? Maybe we should generate some conflict here. But on PCB, the consistency is unreal. And although I got away with fading her earlier this week, and I pulled it off, it's almost like Elise Mertens. You do the little flow chart. Are they playing a person in the top 10? Yes. Bet against them. No. Bet on them. Against a non-top 10 player, it's the closest thing you can get. And for people who love betting favorites and parlay pieces, this is, almost the opposite of like what we were mentioning earlier, with certain guys like who was the favorite that we didn't like earlier, Ugo Humbert, right? We know what we're going to get with PCB here. So, even minus 345 might seem high, but if you have like a minus 170 or something that you want to get involved in, I think that he's great to go ahead and add at that minus 345 and feel safely about it, because he's one of the most consistent, like, what you're getting for your money there when you go ahead and back him. So I agree with you, PCB, consistent guy, and I feel pretty comfortable when I put money on him.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, next match, Joker Fokina. Yeah, for me, it's not worth discussing. Now, look, of course, I'm not saying Joker's a sure thing to win, but he's just I don't bet a lot of Joker matches.
He's a sure thing to win.
Yeah, I don't bet a lot of Joker matches for some obvious reasons.
Because these spreads are just so ridiculous. -6 on a 2-set match.
Yeah, you're basically handicapping. You're not even handicapping.
You're handicapping the coin flip.
Yeah, you're not even handicapping Joker's abilities. You're really handicapping his motivation, because he goes up a break or two. Like at some point, like from a motivation standpoint, I'm sure maybe he lets up a bit on his own serves. And look, it impacts the spread, right? So overall, we could probably just move past this match.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so Medvedev and Fognini. Now, Fognini, local Paisan. Look, I've always liked Fognini. What I always like about him is how casual he looks in rallies. It's just like, he'll slowly approach a ball and then just kind of rip it down the line, or slowly approach a ball, rip across quarter. I think that complacency though, or that maybe we'll call flashiness, does bite him a bit, and it likely will bite him in this match if he assumes that role. Now this line here, Medvedev minus 900, is a fair line. Fognini does have actually a decent serve for his size, but by no means has a Medvedev serve, and will likely not put much pressure on Medvedev here, especially if Medvedev's getting his first serves in. However, I would have thought about hitting the total, but at 19.5, that seems fair. Medvedev should likely win this in straights. But look, a motivated Fognini that really wants to win this match could certainly test Medvedev, but overall, I'll be staying away. I don't want to try to figure out whether or not I'm going to get an elite version of Fognini here.
Right. We just talked about PCB. Now we have the polar opposite, right, with Fognini, where you put your money down and it's spinning the roulette wheel. Which guy's going to show up? And I'm with you. I don't want to. If you want action on this match, take the dog, take the plus 500. technically you can argue there is some value because a motivated, top of his game Fognini can go ahead and test Medvedev. But I personally don't want to get involved with that. There were some issues that he had going into the Olympics, not being happy with the Italian team. I think that he was not able to play doubles because of some withdrawals and stuff. So I just have no idea where his head's at. I'm going to go ahead and stay away from this one.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, so last match on the men's side for tonight's action into tomorrow. Zverev and Basil. So, I mean, so first of all, what a heroic comeback from Basil against Sonego. So he went down a break maybe twice in that third set. At least once he went down a break in that third set. Came back to beat Sonego, who has found a tremendous improvement in his own serving speed over the last 6 to 12 months. But here, look, here's another thing with a player like Zverev, right? If you get Zverev at sub 60% first serves or sub 55% first serves, he could literally lose to anyone. It doesn't matter who it is. You get Zverev serving at 65%, 70, not double faulting much. He can literally beat anyone. What version of him we get today or tonight, that's tough for me to want to predict. I know that he's going to play a much harder hitter here than he's seen in this tournament. At least Basil's already seen that. I know I'm only pronouncing half his name. I just always pronounce it half his name. But either way, what are your thoughts on this match spread? Is there anything relevant here? I just think, to me, I don't want to figure out the first serve percentage numbers for Zverev and how I'm going to bet this match. But I do think it very much so correlates in how this match plays out. You get him at 65%, he 2-0s easily here. You get him at any less, Basil's very live.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. So my thoughts basically on Zverev are, if you are, a member of Run Pure Bets and you jumped in the Discord, you know that I do the women's side a lot more intensely than the men's side. But the place that I think that we found some value overall for this tournament, I thought Zverev was the big misprice on the outrights before the tournament came out, right? So you had Novak at minus 160, minus 180. I hate to say it, correct price, right? You got Medvedev at 4.5, 5-1, depending on what time, right? And Tsitipsas at about 5.5 or 6-1, right? Then you got Zverev all the way at 12-1 just because he was in Djokovic's half, which to me is a mistake because number one, you want to play Djokovic earlier. I think that the finals, I'm worried about Zverev in a final more than I would be. In fact, I would rather have him play him in a quarterfinal than a semifinal. So my look was to take Zverev pre-tournament at 12-1, and I'm going to go ahead and let that ride. And kind of piggybacking off what you said, of course he can play bad, but when he plays his best, he's an elite world-class player. He can beat anybody. He's beat Novak in slow conditions like in Miami on almost like the same surface. Why? Because the slower conditions allow, he's not going to hit through you on the baseline to begin with. Obviously, the professional tennis players, they can put away any shot. But Zverev, especially when things get tough, he does kind of switch back into push mode. Not being blown off the court on these slower surfaces, I think favors him very well. So I do have the 12-1 pregame tournament, and I'll let that ride. And at minus 1250, I don't really see a reason to get involved. I guess if you wanted to make an argument that Basil will keep it close, I won't try and pronounce his name either. You could grab the +5, but I'm pretty content to just go ahead and let my future ride here, and I think Zverev gets it done here. I'm really excited to see how he does in this tournament. I think this is a great opportunity for him to break through here because if he can make it to that semi, he's free rolling. Nobody's going to expect him to beat Djokovic, so I think it'll be a nice situation for him where he might not feel some of that pressure that he felt in the U.S. Open final in 2020, where the expectations were a lot higher for him.
I like that look because, you're right. He is super live, right? I mean, because you just get elite tennis from him at the right time, and that would be against, of course, Joker. And yes, very live to win it. He has no business losing today. He'd have to really pile in double faults and, again, have to completely miss his first serves consistently. But, again, he will get tested a little here today with harder hitting on the other end. But, again, this should be a match.
It doesn't really ever seem to bother him, though. He's tall. He likes to play deep behind the baseline. and he doesn't really try to be super aggressive. So when you pin him back there, he's not necessarily as uncomfortable as some other players where you can see them trying to get that court position back right away. He's actually fine playing from negative court positions. So, that's one of the things that I think it's going to work in his factor against Basil today, and why this line is just so ridiculous. And I think that you would agree with me. He shouldn't be twice as high as Medvedev or Tsitipsas on this tournament. I mean, if it was like those black New York courts that play super fast, I can understand Medvedev being twice or three times as high, but I was really surprised by that number. So that was, to me, the big mistake that the bookmakers made pre-tournament.
No, I agree. Okay, so we could shift over to the women's side where
all right.
I'm sure you'll be more active or happy at least. So we could just start with the first match. So Belinda Bencic and Krejcikova. It's been a shame for me to watch Bencic over the last calendar 12 to 18 months, primarily because I know how talented she is. I mean, I watched her big run she had, and it might have been 2019 where she kind of really came on the scene, or 2018 where she kind of rocket shipped into like the top 50, top 40, 30. And she still sits at 12, but a lot of that has to do with the COVID rankings giving her some protection. She did play well in the grass run. We'll give her that. But then she ended up being, of course, one and done in Wimbledon. I've liked what I've seen from her a lot in this venue. I think she's been very confident on serve. She's putting a ton of pressure on opponents, specifically a lot of pressure on opponents' second serves. Krejcikova is a whole different type of test for her here, though. I'm talking about a player rocket shipping up. She has been arguably the hottest player on the ladies' tour this season. She has the French Open win. She went decently far in Wimbledon before losing to Broady. I'm looking here. Am I looking at one loss since May 21st? For those counting at home, I believe that's like 18-1 in her last 19 matches. And these are all.
And the loss is to Ash Barty, the number one in the world.
Yeah, it's just
right?
and the other loss was to Iga on clay. So yeah. It's just been kind of crazy her entire run. With this in mind, though, I think that the line has all this included in it, and I've really liked what I've seen from Bencic. So I'm interested in your thoughts here. But I like grabbing the games with Bencic in this spot. You can grab 3.5 at plus 100. I think Bencic is very live not only to steal a set. If she continues the way she's been playing, steal a set and maybe even upset. I know this would be quite an upset for her, all things considered, with how good Krejcikova's looked. But again, I know the type of caliber player Bencic is, and I've seen that version of her in these first few matches. She will get tested heavier here, but I think there's some solid value on the dog here.
Yeah, that's the way I was actually looking at this originally, but Krejcikova's playing so well. I just didn't want to get in front of the steamroller. And it was just one of those ones where, let's say you bet it and Belinda wins, and I left the value on the table. I'm not necessarily going to regret it because just the idea that, right, like you bet on the streak, you can only lose once, right? You try to fade a streak, you can lose a bunch of times here. So while I do agree with you, and my original look was actually to take the money line with Belinda, just going back and looking at Krejcikova's last matches, her results, and the current form she's in, I just couldn't do it. So if you want to grab the games, that seems to make sense to me. I love what you do as far as don't take the -4 at -114. Take the plus 3.5 at plus 100. In the long, you may get those days where it lands on 4 and you're really upset, but in the long run, you're going to make so much more money because it's not going to land on that number so much of the time that you'd rather be at 1-1 rather than losing those juices and getting juiced out, So I think that, if you are going to play it, you've probably got the right look here. I just personally didn't want to get in front of the steamroller. That's Krejcikova right now. And with Barty being eliminated, we have to actually, mention her as a realistic shot for the title now. Sabalenka's out now too. Naomi's looked fantastic, but you definitely have to consider her, one of the top 3 contenders that's left.
That's a really good point you bring up, that like why step in front of this match? Like, even if you're somebody who loves Belinda Bencic, so I want to be clear, I don't love Belinda Bencic in this spot. I like her in this spot. But like, why would you step in front of Krejcikova at 225? I mean, this is a chick that's lost once in her last 19 matches. And she's short priced here, probably a bit because of Bencic's form. But it is Is this really the spot you want to step in front of her? Because if you've been riding this with Krejcikova, why would you stop that now? Why would you pick to stop that now? So,
and even if we lay off and then Belinda wins, I mean, I'm not really too upset.
no,
I mean, I don't really feel like, like, dang it, I missed this obvious spot. I just, so I think that we can find better spots than this.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so Sorribes Tormo goes up against Pvalyuchenkova, or Pavly, as I like to abbreviate it as well. Pavly's been another one that's kind of rose onto the scene recently. Obviously, a journey type player. It's been around a while, but found her form late into the clay season and then looked really good in the French. Kind of carried that play over to grass a bit before losing to my girl Mohova at Wimbledon. And then's looked really good here to start. But look, I mean, Tormo's knocked Broady out, looked really good against Ferro. And Ferro is a player that I actually like. I think she's better than her ranking, but either way, I guess for another conversation.
Yeah, I think Ferro's better than her ranking as well. She's not 100% right now. She's carrying an injury, but she doesn't have the financial wherewithal to sit out. So you're getting her kind of dragging herself through these tournaments. So I would keep that in mind, because the tape that she's putting out right now isn't really indicative of who she is as a player. But how long is she going to run around with this injury for? I have no idea. My guess is she's going to have to run through the whole hardcourt swing in the United States, and then we're going to think she's really bad, and we'll have a chance to make some money with her next year after she heals.
No, I couldn't agree more. But relative to this match, again, a player that's kind of was a legend killer in terms of Broady going out, and now is plus 175. It's hard to imagine there's not a whole lot of value, but I think you like a total number in this spot, right, Spread?
Yeah, I like the over here, and I do think that there's value on Tormos. I mean, we talked about Bencic at a plus 183 earlier. I get a plus 173. I'm much more comfortable with this dog because, I mean, Pvalyuchenkova is playing well, but she's not necessarily the steamroller, right? And then let's take a look at Tormo, who's a player that was actually one of our favorite fades in 2019. And all of a sudden, she's become a good tour player. She's not overly athletic. She doesn't hit the cover off the ball. So she's not necessarily a player that we had pegged to make this rise. How has she done it? She's become incredibly consistent. She's not no unforced errors. I mean, she just keeps the ball in play. She keeps grinding, and she doesn't give up here. I like this number here. Tormo's someone because never been a blue chip prospect, not a lot of historical success. Where Pvalyuchenkova's shown spurts of brilliance, almost every season. For the last 5 years, you'll get one little run where she's up there hitting and playing with the top players. Tormo's never done that, so you're getting still a little bit of value here on the name, because a lot of people have cashed a lot of bets betting against Tormo. Who to me in 2019 looked like she was going to be an ITF player. I really questioned her ability to compete on the WTA, but by really nailing down her consistency and a little bit of mental toughness as well, has come back to the WTA and just done it with storm. So give me the dog here. I'll take the plus 173, and I'll also take the over 21 games.
Awesome. Love it. Next match, Muguruza and Van Uytanck.
Van Uytanck.
Uytanck?
Van Uytanck.
Van Uytanck.
Yeah, AVU. That's the one we just call her AVU.
AVU. I'll stick with that. Now, she was a player I had been watching more in 2019, and hence the complete flub on her name pronunciation. But she has been very poor this season. Now, she found some confidence lately with some we'll call easy W's in lighter tournaments recently, especially on grass, and then has the big upset against Kvitova. But here, to me, I don't think this line can get big enough. I don't think she has much of a shot here. What I find interesting, though, and this kind of deterred me a bit with one of Muguruza's matches recently. So against Kudermetova, she had like 15 or so aces against her. Kudermetova had 15 aces against Muguruza, and it started making me really question her inability to return well. Because look, Kudermetova's got a good serve for the women's end, but not 15 aces worth of a serve in 2 sets. But Muguruza did bounce back well in her last match, and she'll be seeing a lighter serve here. I just think, what's her name, Van Uytanck.
Van Uytanck.
Van Uytanck is a bit of a flash in the pan as far as her recent win. I think this is a different scenario than the Tormo one, where Tormo beats Broady, looks good in her follow-up match. I think that Muguruza should roll here. Much bigger serve. I'm able to get past the Kudermetova match where she had just let ace after ace go by her and still managed to win that in 2 sets. I think even though it's a heavily inflated number at 190, I think you could probably even dabble into the game spread, which should be what, 4.5? Is it that big? Might be bigger.
I got 5.5.
It is 5.5. Wow. So yeah, if you can create yourself 5, I guess I wouldn't mind creating 5 at like $1.30. But overall, I don't see how Muguruza would have to. And again, what's Muguruza's problem, right? Finals. Muguruza's problem is finals, and Muguruza's problem is elite players. You're not anywhere near that in this scenario. So, well, we all know about her nerves chipping at her late in finals, especially this year. I mean, my Lord, how many matches has she lost in finals matches or quarterfinals matches where players she should have beaten? But either way, this is not a spot where I think she lays down at all.
Yeah, I mean, Garbine has had issues with no-shows here. So obviously that's all, you keep that in mind when you bet Garbine. But let's go off the tape. I don't see any way how Garbine doesn't completely exploit her movement advantage. She's so much quicker, so much better on the baseline, and AVU, fantastic doubles player. She's got a nice serve, great hands at the net. Not the quickest player, which is why she excels so well in doubles. Her only win over Garbine was actually at Wimbledon in 2018. Why is that? The surface is quick. Her lack of movement is mitigated by how fast the service is and how quickly she can end these points. That's not going to happen here. I do believe that 5.5 games is too much. I do believe this is lined about right. So I'm not going to get involved, but I'm with you. I really struggle to see, other than like a complete no-show or something weird happens where Garbine, the fire alarm goes off all night in her hotel room or something.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see how on this slow surface how she just doesn't completely exploit AVU's movement deficiency.
Awesome. So then next up would be Paul Badosa and Nadia Podoroska.
Mm-hmm.
So Badosa, another player, right, that's been rocket shipping up the ranks this year, and she's looked incredible in her clay run. And look, she has an above-average serve for sure, so you only figured this would translate to grass and hard court. She's looked really good here, beats Mladenovic and Iga. But look, Podoroska, we know what we get with her, right? A lot of pop off her racket, but also often a lot of unforced errors that come with that pop. Which player has less unforced errors likely wins this match? To me, it's a little closer than this line indicates, though. I know Badosa gets obvious love because she's been incredible, but this is the type of player where Podoroska could put a lot of pressure on her to at least play well here. This isn't going to be exactly it shouldn't be, unless you get, again, a woeful version of Podoroska, should not be a cruise control match for Badosa by any means. Actually lean the dog here, and I'd be happy to take the games if you needed me to really give it an option here. Spread bet should be, what, 3.5, 4.5? It's 4.5. Yeah, I mean, I like that spot a lot for Podoroska.
Yeah, and I won't argue with the games, but I do believe that Badosa gets the victory here. Badosa came through for us. That was kind of nice for me to see. I actually was asleep for it, but I did throw it in the Discord for the Run Pure Bets member. That was the one match I liked for round 2. I thought we'd got some nice value with her over Iga, and I felt Iga was slightly overvalued on hard courts just because her game is so beautiful that we tend to just think that she's going to succeed everywhere. But she's so much better still on clay at this point of her career that I feel like you can get a little value going against her with the right players. And Badosa, to me, is an all-court player, and I think that's why she's going to have success in Wimbledon. It's very quick, and now she's going to have success here on these slow courts in Tokyo. And I personally like the matchup. I believe that she can coax errors out of Podoroska. Of course, if Podoroska redlines and we see that forehand, just flying out there and getting lots of winners here, she's got a chance for an upset. Definitely got a great chance to cover. 4.5 seems a little bit too high there, but I do think Badosa gets it done, and I do think that the fact that she has more variety in her game is really going to show through, and that on any extended points, I think that she's really going to put Podoroska into problems. I think Podoroska's game plan, she's going to want quick points. She's going to want to get there, get an advantage, take an advantage, hit winners. I think the longer Badosa can make these rallies go, the better chance she has. I think the surface will lend itself to the longer rallies, so Badosa gets it done. But if you want to take the 4.5, I wouldn't necessarily argue with you there, because I don't know if the Badosa is going to get a ton of breaks.
Oh, works for me on a few different counts, because I do like that angle that you said though about money line, but the games on the opposite end, because I like the dog plus the games, but you definitely think Badosa closes it out. So you can find ways to middle these. Obviously, it's not always going to work out that way in particular, but you can middle these matches in many different ways, especially if you're live betting. So Georgie and Pliskova. Yeah, for me, my best look here would be over 2.5 sets. You can get this at plus 135. I'm seeing on DK. I think you get at least one good set out of Georgie here. She's really elevated her play recently, and she's kind of been finding her form. She's a player that will run through these spurts of confident tennis and unconfident tennis. And we know her issues with the double faulting and her issues with her second serves. But, man, I mean, she loves to play with power players, and she's going to get one certainly here. Much as Pliskova does as well. I think overall, I think there's a good shot this goes 3 sets, and I think it's better than the plus 135 currently being shown. So, yeah, small bet for me, or small like for me, in favor of this going 3 sets. What do you think, Spread?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Georgie likes playing against other power players. Why? It doesn't test her resiliency, doesn't test her fitness, doesn't test, her ability to stay in points. She wants to bang. She wants to point over in less than 5 shots, and Pliskova is going to be quick to oblige her here. A lot of quick points. I think that bodes well for both players. Whoever wins, right, should have a nice quick match to get into this next round here. I personally like Pliskova a lot, but not enough to bet here at this minus 222. A little bit of value might be on Georgie, who you'll remember most recently got the win over her in Eastbourne. So it's not like she doesn't have the game to overcome Pliskova. Surface will be a lot different, and Pliskova is one that you would think who does better on quicker surfaces, but because her foot speed is so slow, sometimes the slower surface helps her a tad, as it allows her to be able to set up for her shots a little better. I lean Pliskova here, but I can't necessarily go against your play here, because I think minus 222 is too heavy for the favorite.
Awesome. Yeah, we got 3 matches left. So Naomi Osaka and Vondrousova. First of all, let me go on record. I love the Osaka red hair. I am a fan. I also caught her Netflix documentary, which I thought was pretty insightful. At least the first episode was. I mean, the second episode about her fashion stuff, well, kudos to her. But I think for me personally, the tennis stuff was cool to see, as far as the mental space and how that kind of impacts a lot of these players. I thought the documentary was pretty well put together. But relative to this tournament, her form has looked really good. She does look like she's playing very confidently. And here she's a big favorite. What's the exact number? Do I have it here? Osaka.
She's minus 5 something, minus 526.
Okay. Oh, I do have it. Yeah, 525. Okay. Yeah. So for me, I don't want to step in front of Naomi here. At least not the form I've seen. Vondrousova has a big serve, so that could put a little pressure on Osaka in certain regards. But I've said this before. When you take every women's player's ceiling, and if you argue that all of them are playing or can play at their ceiling in any given moment, for me, Naomi's ceiling is better than every other women's player on the WTA. And I think she's been playing really well here. I don't think she's been playing her ceiling type tennis. But if she continues to play in this form, to me, this becomes her tournament to lose for some obvious reasons. But overall, I'll stay away from this match. I don't want to really lay 525. And Vondrousova is good enough to put a little pressure on her, even at this inflated price. So I'll stay away.
Yeah, first of all, agree. On hard course, Naomi Osaka is by far the best player. And in fact, it's kind of crazy how much the drop-off is to other surfaces. And I don't want to take away from her on clay or grass, but I want to say that that's because she's that elite on hard courts. I mean, it's just, it's almost getting to that Djokovic level where, even when Federer and Nadal were more in their prime, Djokovic was the best hard court player. I feel that way about Naomi. Then with Vondrousova, she's a player that, for whatever reason, has not looked like herself this season. The body language hasn't been good. The tape that she's been putting out, if you watch her, she's not nearly the player she was in 2019. I don't know the reason for her regression. My guess would be that it's mental. Something struggling going on with either the success, the changes in the world, with everything going on, throwing her off her routine, something like that. But I haven't seen what I'd want to see to take her as a live dog here. So I'd have to agree with you. The way I thought Naomi's playing great. I was worried she'd be a little rusty, right? I mean, the last time we saw her, Miami, I believe. Oh, she played one match in the French before she withdrew. But regardless, it's been a long time. I was a little bit hesitant to see that if she'd come back in top form, especially with all the controversy swirling around her. But I thought she looked fantastic. And to me, she's by far the hands-down favorite to win it with Ash and Sabalenka leaving the tournament.
Yeah, I just think she's a player I don't want to fade by any means, and I don't necessarily want to be laying 525 or minus 250. Knowing if Andrusova just elevates her play a bit, she certainly could be live to steal a set. Be hard to imagine Naomi loses today. So Svitolina and Sakkari, so this is a typical match of power versus returning. To me, Svitolina is not going to be live on every Sakkari serve. Sakkari will be live on every single Svitolina serve. This makes it very difficult for me to want to bet Svitolina in this match in any fashion, or the spread bets. I think Svitolina on any day, of course, can beat anybody. She's just an elite returner. And her serve has kicked up a bit over the last 12 to 24 months, we'll say, or even when she was inside the top five. I guess that's going back 2-3 years now at this point. But for me, this match is won and lost on Sakkari's racket. And most matches like that, Sakkari doesn't end up losing herself when she plays pure returners like this. So typically, you at least need a good mix of power because Sakkari moves really well as well, which is an interesting mix with how much power she has. Overall, I don't want any part of Svitolina. I necessarily don't want to lay 220 either, though. Wouldn't mind laying 3.5. So overall, that would be my lean. Sakkari minus the 3.5.
All right. Well, Skip and Shannon will be happy because I get to go opposite of you here. I agree. If this number was pretty close, that you could take Sakkari here. But I think this number is way too high. I mean, Svitolina is still number 6 in the world. I know they are protected rankings, but she's been fantastic. She has the ability to redirect. The slow hard courts is probably her best surface as she can continue to return, try and wear out her opponent. What's an issue? She's going against one of the players that's the best condition in the tour. So that normal strategy of just get stuff back, I'm going to wear you down, you're going to start to wear down, you're playing right into Maria's hands here. So she does not have that advantage that she usually has. One advantage, though, I think that she might have, though, being the dog, recently married, not a lot of pressure here. I think that she could have a mental edge. We've seen this with Sakkari before where a lot of times in these favorite situations, she struggles, and we see it in finals too. Under a lot of pressure, she has not always shown out to be the best. I thought there was some value here in taking Svitolina at plus 179, so that was my dog of the day here. I like Svitolina to maybe pull the upset.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, it's good. It's good that we're disagreeing a bit because that makes for at least we disagreed on something here.
Yeah, right.
So no, that makes for good stuff. I mean, I will also reference as far as nerves go. Svitolina used to deal with her nerve demons as well years back when she used to.
Right in the finals and semifinals, though, right? Early rounds, she's okay, right? Because she's the dog. There's not a lot of attention. There's still 8 other matches going on at the same time. It's not Tupac, all eyes on me. So, but yeah, I agree with you. If it was closer to the end, they both have issues with nerves though. So maybe that's a wash, right?
So last but not least, Rybakina and Vekic. I'm sorry, Vekic. So Donna, hasn't played a lot this year, but the type of caliber player she can be, obviously with the big serve. Rybakina with the big serve as well. Total games 20.5. You would think that could make some sense for the over. I know that Rybakina is a big favorite here, but look, we know that Vekic brings a really good serve into the mix. Her form isn't exactly great. Again, she hasn't played a lot of matches, but she's another player that really can test almost any player on any given day. Rybakina is just a really young, good player with a big serve. and very big forehand as well. To me, smallest of leans over the 20.5 number. I do think it's possible if this goes 2 sets, you can still get a 12 or a 13 gamer in there. But overall, nothing crazy for me in this last match.
Yeah, I like the over here as well. So originally when I looked at these numbers, plus 204 for Donna looked pretty appealing, right? And I started going back, looking through the matches. I don't like the matchup at all. I feel like they do a lot of similar things, and Rybakina just does them better, right? Donna, we need the big serve. Rybakina's got a little better serve, right? Donna, hey, you get a lot of forehand winners. Guess who does that even better? Rybakina. And what I like about Rybakina? Go ahead, turn on the match, blot out the score. You're not going to be able to tell what the score is watching her on the court, right? I think she does a fantastic job of keeping herself composed mentally, and I don't think that she will beat herself. She doesn't get down on herself. She doesn't get too high when things are going well, and I think that's another thing in her advantage here. So I like your overlook. I have a lean to the dog because it feels like they are very similar players, and if I don't get the best version of Rybakina, it's not crazy to see Donna go ahead and take advantage of that. The reason I'm not making the bet is just that if we do get the best version of both, I think that Rybakina does the things that are Donna's strengths just a little bit better than Donna, and that will probably be on display. But plus 204, I'm telling you that one's tempting, and I've been hovering over that. So But ultimately, I stayed away.
And I can't blame you either. And look, that wraps up everything. I know this show might have felt a little long for some. We tried to go over every match at least as briefly or even as detailed as we could. Some of them. So as I mentioned, my best bet here is Duckworth and Khachanov over 20.5 games. And spread. What was your best bet from the show?
I'm gonna do the newlywed games. Right? I mean, everyone loves a good honeymoon, so I'll take Svitolina Monfils at plus 179 to overcome Maria Sakkari.
Awesome. So those are the bets. We'll try to do this show more occasional than we've been. Obviously, this is the first one in a while, but we'll try to do more than this moving forward to get you guys more as we push towards the U.S. Open. And then look, blink when the U.S. Open starts and the NFL is starting. So
yeah,
we'll be there soon. Hopefully, we can get spread on here a few times a week talking some tennis. I'll try to be on as much as possible with them. Maybe we'll get some of the DFS crew as well in here to talk as well. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Like the video as always if you haven't already. And other than that, as always, folks, gamble responsibly, stay safe, and we'll catch you guys next time. Later.